All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Founders Cut. And before we get into what Klaris is, as you might know by now, I like to start by talking to the person behind the logo. And so, the short, medium, or long version, how did you get to the point of becoming a founder of a hardware tech company?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll try and make a short, long version of this. So both my parents were engineers, so I was always interested in building and designing things, even as a kid. Went to University of Wisconsin-Madison, got a chemical engineering degree there, and they had this awesome Innovation Days program where you could, as an extracurricular, submit a invention with either by yourself or a team, and then you went in front of a panel of judges and they basically graded it. And our senior year, we came up with this novel color 3D printing technology. We ended up winning that competition, went to the business school competition, won that. And the rest was kind of history. I was hooked on startups and building cool technologies into consumer products. So we ended up actually taking that technology and selling it to a company called MakerBot in Brooklyn, New York. Moved there for 2 years. Really wanted to see what it was like to work for a unicorn kind of startup. So went to Boston for 3 years and worked for Desktop Metal. And then kind of realized, I'm ready to do my own thing again. And it was right before the pandemic. I was getting really into craft ice, trying to make it at home, and it was a pain in the butt. So I just started learning about the process and building stuff in my basement, and yeah, just kind of took the leap and been doing that full time ever since.
Very cool. Let's set the stage for some folks. When you
Yeah.
say craft ice, I know because we've already talked and I've seen it in action at bars, right? So for people that might not know what that means, there might be some folks that think ice is ice. What do you mean by craft ice?
Yeah, no, absolutely, and great question there. So, how I like to typically define craft ice is, a larger ice form that's extremely clear. It's slow melting, and it has far less impurities than the ice you get in your typical freezer ice. Um, what it really comes down to is the process itself. So, craft ice is typically made through a directional freezing process. Whereas kind of what I like to call crappy ice or ice that offends me is the freezer ice, where it's freezing from all directions and it's trapping impurities and gases in the center of the cube, and that's where you're getting that cloudiness from.
Yeah, so best way to think about it is the ice um, dilutes your drink slower and doesn't change the taste as quickly. So, because you're getting cleaner, I guess harder ice even maybe too. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is denser. Yep.
Yeah, cool. Well, so let's jump into it. What is Claris?
So Klaris is a countertop clear craft ice maker. So most people are familiar with kind of the silicone molds, right? You fill them up with water, you put them in your freezer, and 24 to 36 hours later, you can get two, four, or six cubes. Quality is so-so, and yeah, it's just kind of a pain in the butt to work with. Um, so what we developed is a dedicated device that you're actually kind of taking a similar tray to, filling it with water. You're putting it into the machine, closing the top. It'll run and make four perfectly square, crystal clear cubes, 2 inches in size, in about 8 to 10 hours. So we recommend 2 cycles per day for a total of eight cubes per day.
And then, it's funny because you're in the industry now, so you know about it. But, if you go to a fancy bar, part of the cost you're paying for is probably for that ice, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So this actually started at a local restaurant here in town when I got an old fashioned. They are supplied by a local company called Minnesota Pure and Clear. So they have an ice distribution center. They make these massive blocks of clear ice and then they cut them up into small cubes. They'll do spheres, they'll do long cubes as well for highball glasses. But then they're storing and shipping those cubes to bars and restaurants, and they charge anywhere from, depending on how high the volume is, 50 cents per cube up to $1.50. And if you're in New York or LA, like you're looking at $3 to $5 per cube. It all just depends on the shape and the customizability of it. And then that restaurant is now, to make their margins, is now 3xing it. So that $15 cocktail, $3 to $5 of that is coming from the ice.
Yeah. And so when you think about why you started this company, was it to try to break into that industry or more for the direct to consumer at home market?
Yeah, so initially when I started out, I was focused on the commercial market. I thought there was a great opportunity to make a machine that could do hundreds, if not thousands, of these cubes per day. I think what came decision for me as a founder is I kind of want to take more of a bootstrapping approach, and to tackle that type of machine out of the gate was going to require millions of dollars in R&D and development. And I also saw a lot of these local ice distributors. Everybody was getting into the game, so it's going to be very high with competition. On the other end, I saw the silicone molds, and those were definitely popular but cheap and didn't get you all the way to craft ice. And you're seeing this movement towards, like, especially with COVID going on, more like uh, kind of like luxury appliances. You look at Solo Stove. There's a new composter called Lomi, that's fully automated, that are sitting in the price point range of $400 to $600, that are doing a very specific task. And that's kind of where I saw this white space, for taking kind of the industrial clear ice making process, condensing it down into a consumer focused product, in kind of that premium space to start.
Got it. And what's the initial reaction been? How has the initial launch gone for you?
It's been awesome. So we started our first batch sales in January, sold out within 2 days. We delivered all those units in February. We're now on to batch two, and actually just this week. It's been a crazy week, but just shipped out all of those units, and we'll be moving on to batch three here shortly. It's been great. Everybody's like, super excited and stoked about the product. We were pretty much asking everyone, like, hey, show us a pic of like your first, drink with the Klaris cube. And it's just been fun to see the community really jazzed about it. And we've got an internal community as well, where every time you purchase it, you're invited to this Facebook group, and that's where everybody's communicating, sharing recipes, things like that. So just hoping to grow and expand that, and keep learning.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. Um, Out of curiosity, if you have someone that isn't on the ball and doesn't do 2 cycles a day, what
Mhm.
happens to the ice? Does it continue to freeze and then you run into the ice having to be redone, or does it just kind of stay in that state until you go and harvest it?
Yeah, so it is a machine dedicated to ice making, not necessarily ice storage. So it's an 8 to 10 hour cycle for the cubes. It will hold those cubes for you though for 6 additional hours.
Okay.
So you've got kind of 3/4 of a day window to really make and pick up your ice. And then what we recommend, and a lot of our customers are doing, is it's such an easy process. You literally take out the tray, remove your cubes, and you either enjoy your cubes immediately, or you can put them in a storage container, which we sell, or people have been doing Ziploc bags, and then putting it into your freezer. You can use, the cubes don't go bad once they're in
Right.
your freezer.
Right.
So, mhm.
Cool. That makes a lot of sense. So, you know, obviously this is Horizon One for the company,
Mhm.
and obviously next in line is Batch Three. But where do you see this going in the future for you in Claris?
Yeah, absolutely. So, our goals this year is really to scale up marketing and sales. I'm again a product designer and someone who loves building things. Now, a lot of my day-to-day tasks are transitioning towards building out the community in the sales channel and the marketing opportunities. So that's really where we're focused this year. And it's also, how much of that can we bootstrap versus, how much goes into, paid marketing or advertising. Uh, based on those sales, for this year, we'll look to transition more into retail in 2024 and beyond to really start to expand the reach of Klaris, as well as we see clear ice as kind of a creative medium. It was really cool. There's a New York Times article that just came out about luxury ice. But the clear ice is cool, but there's so many more things you can do with it. You can carve it. Some of our customers or community members are freezing, different fruits and orange peels and stuff into it, as well as ice spheres or ice presses are another thing where people are taking the cubes out and pressing them into different shapes or stamping different logos on top of them.
Okay. Okay.
Hmm.
So a little bit of a lot of creativity being expressed in this space here.
Yep.
You know, part of this is also I'm hoping that founders are finding insights as they hear from other founders building. Talk about some of the early days. What are some of the surprises, some of the frustrations, the highs and the lows of starting your own company?
Yeah, I mean, probably the most brutal part of the journey for me has been going at this alone, and especially during COVID. My first company I started, I founded with four other or three other individuals. So you always had this team mentality. They were all also working full time. And so your ups and downs, you were able to kind of ride those out with the others. Whereas here, not only was I riding the ups and downs alone, but we were in the middle of COVID where you couldn't really go to a co-working space or be around other entrepreneurs. So a lot of that has come through my network. So there's a few individuals that are also building their own startups that multiple times per week just hop on the phone for 15 minutes and like talking through some of the struggles and stuff has been helpful, as well as just having that support system. My wife and family and friends have been extremely helpful in terms of learning on the technical end of things. Hardware's hardware. It was pretty wild, especially with we're manufacturing overseas, so dealing with the China shutdowns put a hamper in some of our manufacturing for 2 or 3 months. Super expensive shipping back and forth. It was just absolutely wild. Component shortages, and then also like building a hardware product remotely. I think was pretty challenging. Where um, you need to have a physical machine, right? You need to be sitting in front of it. You need to be testing it out. And like I had mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, software engineers, all remote working on these pieces. And I was the glue kind of keeping it all together. All the components would come to me, and then I'd have to communicate out the issues outward and have them resolve them. So,
Yeah. Well, I think it's good for people that are trying to do their own thing to hear the highs and the lows. So I appreciate the candor.
yeah.
Um, Tell me a little bit about the market opportunity. Where do you see this at its biggest? Talk about whether it's craft drinks, whether it's bars, whether it's at home. I don't know, like how when you decided to jump into this, you must have seen like you talked about like the premium solo solo utility products like the solo stove and whatnot. But
Yep.
what did you see as like, oh, if I do this right, I can tap into this opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing is I'm just passionate about building really, really cool things, and I think that's first and foremost important part from the opportunity perspective. Like especially with COVID, um, people were taking on new hobbies, and like making craft cocktails just absolutely blew up. We're also seeing a big rise in craft. We had the craft beer movement in the 2010s, and then now we're seeing kind of the craft spirits movement move along, and the craft ice kind of goes hand in hand with all of those items. So again, I just kind of seeing a gap in the market and seeing more and more people with
Sure.
disposable income looking for high end products to have in their house and be able to entertain and share those experiences with others.
Two questions. One on the user experience. Regular tap water fine for usage in this, or do you use a specific type of water?
Yeah, tap water's great. So a lot of clear ice really just comes down to directional
Sure.
freezing, and the process itself actually is a filtering process. A fun little experiment I've done is you can take food coloring, put it in the water beforehand, and at the end of the process, you've got crystal clear cubes and then a dark blue film
A
of water
sediment.
on
Yeah,
top.
yeah.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
so
Cool.
uh,
And then my other question is, obviously you're doing four at a time now. Are there
yep.
thoughts for the future to have more like 12 or larger run?
Yeah, yeah. So the technology itself is scalable up or down to really meet the needs. Again, for how much I want to bite off as entrepreneur and trying to bootstrap this, uh, four seemed like the perfect amount. Our customers, if they're running this 3 4 times a week, like they have to be drinking a lot to be going through that many cubes and stuff. So it's been great for throughput in the home, but absolutely, if we want to move up into the commercial market, I think, yeah, finding a machine that's doing 8 16 even 32 cubes per day, I think is kind of the bare minimum we have to be able to accomplish to suffice that market.
Yeah, I think there's probably some savvy entrepreneur out there that's like, you're telling me I can sell a cube of ice for, $1 a cube. I just need machines that can let me, print my or freeze my money, right? Basically. So
Yeah, yeah.
I was curious on that front. And obviously that could be something Klaris works into as well as becoming one of those ice manufacturers. But let's pivot a little bit. Um, you know, as you kind of go through this journey, finding the right people is important. Who are some of the types of folks that you're trying to connect with these days?
Um, so as I would say very early on, it was a lot more focused on technical development. A lot of that came through my engineering network that I built up through my 3D printing days and through my college days. Now, though, I'm transitioning more into marketing and sales, and that is not necessarily my bread and butter. And so that is where I'm just joining various communities. So, like Twin City Ignition. Garage. I've joined that community, attending some of like the beta events that are going on, as well as just connecting with all the different investors in the Twin Cities area. It's whether or not able to get investment, but everybody knows someone that could be of help or yeah, can provide insight. And I basically am not saying no to a meeting at this point because there's always something to learn and grow from.
Got it. And if people want to find the product, where should they head?
Yeah, so we're selling directly on our Shopify website right now. The website is Craft Klaris, CraftKlaris.com.
Got it. And any advice for founders that are listening right now?
Oh, keep rolling with the punches. Oh my gosh. It's yeah, I'd say in the last 3 or 4 months, it's there's a lot going on, shipping product, raising money, transitioning to more a marketing sales role from purely kind of like technical development. And we're ultimately firefighters, and it can get really lonely from time to time, but like don't be afraid to reach out for help, join the communities, and just keep plugging along. I look at all the things I used to worry about 3 months ago, 6 months ago, 12. You always find a solution, a way to make it work. Perseverance is really the key to it all.
Yeah, I can't agree more. Anything notable that people should keep an eye out for in 2023 from the Claris front?
Uh, just if you can spread the word about Klaris, that would be the best. I mean, we're looking to grow, really build our community, and enable people to make clear craft ice very easily at home on their countertop.
Yeah, I think it'd be cool if more bars, just had one of these in their arsenal, right? They don't
Yeah,
need to use it for every drink, but when you're giving someone a glass of 18-year, 21-year-old whiskey, maybe you want to use the nicer, slower melting ice instead of just the random stuff, right? So,
yeah,
um,
absolutely.
or whatever your drinks you're trying to make taste better.
Hmm.
Well, I really appreciate your time. It's very cool to see someone that has the skills bring a product to market as efficiently as you have. So, huge kudos to you for doing that, right?
Thank you.
It's not something that's done easily, and you did it in a relatively short amount of time. And I've seen the product; it looks really, really cool. I'm not much of a craft cocktail kind of guy. I also went to Madison, but I'm more of like a traditional blue collar beer drinker more than anything else. But I do know some folks that are, and I'll definitely let them know that you exist so they can check you
Awesome.
out. Um,
Awesome.
Again, so if people want to find you, you're not hard to find. Just look for Klaris Ice on Google, and I think you're the first hit
Yeah.
if you want to go that way. Any last words?
Uh, no, just really appreciate your time and letting Claris kind of tell her story here today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're a hobbyist, if you're an investor, if you're someone that wants to sell this at your store, whatever the case may be, reach out, connect, and see if it's a good opportunity to connect and collaborate.
Awesome. Thanks, Adam. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.